Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hey guys.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'm so excited to be here with these amazing educators, getting ready to share our stories. Um, I think it's important for us to know who we are and how we show up in spaces. And even though we're virtual, right, it's still important to build community. So, in the chat for our participants, just who are you? How are you showing up to the space today for those of you listening from home? And what is giving you life right now? My name is Dyson Pasion. Um, I'm showing up as an educator, as a husband, as an advocate for public education. Um, I currently serve as a teacher advisor to Governor Cooper, so I'm joining you from downtown Raleigh. And what's giving me life right now is the music. Just hearing the music. This playlist. I can't wait for what comes next. So um, I don't want to really belabor the moment too much, but I do want to share that I'm excited to be able to facilitate this timely conversation today as we talk about Latinx representation in the classroom. As education leaders, policymakers, outside organizations continue to devise strategies to improve teacher diversity in the classroom, one element seems glaringly missing: the voice of Latinx teachers and educators. Today, we will have a frank conversation with Latinx educators about how they are coping with a prolonged pandemic, why they joined the teaching profession, and what is keeping them in the classroom. For this conversation, I'm joined by three amazing panelists. Let me introduce them to you now. First, we have Celeste Cervantes, a senior and pre-service teacher at UNC Greensboro School of Education. Next, we have Liliana Soto, an elementary teacher in Vance County Schools. And last, we have Dr. Carlos Ramirez, principal at Cedar Ridge High School with Orange County Schools in Hillsborough, North Carolina. As we dive into this,
You're muted, Dyson.
sorry. As we dive into these conversations, please join us. If you have questions for the panelists, if there's something that really hits you, and you just show us in the chat, right? Drop your questions in the chat, and we're happy to address them throughout the conversation. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're excited to have all of you here with us today. Let's start off with some introductions from you all, our panelists. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and your journey that's led you to become an educator today? And why don't we start with Celeste?
Sure. Real quick, does my audio sound okay right now? Okay. So my name is Celeste Cervantes. I am a first-generation student, the proud daughter of immigrants from Guanajuato, Mexico. I am a senior at UNCG School of Education, majoring in elementary education and concentrating in ESL and dual language education. I'm currently interning in a fifth grade classroom in Randolph County, and I'm serving as a part-time ELL family liaison at UNCG's Mott Street Partnership School. What brought me to teaching has been like my love for learning and school growing up. My mom said that when I was chiquitita that I told her that I wanted to become a teacher to help immigrant families. Um, I'm guessing I saw the need that she had in not being able to connect with my studies and my teachers. And even as little as 4 years old, I remember in pre-K helping a mother translate to my teacher. Um, so I've always wanted to help others, and I saw that students like me weren't represented in the people who were working at the school that I was at. And I wanted to provide that voice for students like me, for students with families like mine. And that's some of the work that I'm doing now in my part time job. And I just hope to continue doing that work after I graduate.
Thank you, Celeste. Liliana, how about you?
Well, 13 years ago, I worked for a Jesuit school that instilled this philosophy of in everything love and serve. My name is Liliana Soto, and that is one of my core values, serving people, and I love to do it. I teach advanced county schools. I'm an ESL teacher. I teach at two schools. I teach at ACOC Elementary and the V3 school, which is a virtual school. Um, I currently work with K through 5 students, but I've worked with elementary, middle, and high school, and also with college students in my hometown within the foreign language department. And I'm so excited because my son is also a North Carolinian. He was born here, and he is also part, like of the valuable students I also teach here. I mean, he represents also the community. And I feel really excited about this conversation.
Thank you, Liliana. And I just can't help but notice the bandera behind you. Yeah, just met Liliana a couple days ago, and we already have quite a few things in common. Um, Carlos, I would love to hear how you came to this moment.
Thank you. First of all, welcome everyone. It's glad to see you. And I just want to let you all know from the get-go, you are not alone. If you're here to make a difference, to continue the lucha for our English language learners and to grow our own, welcome. So when you asked me this story, Jason, to share my story, I didn't, mine was a little different because, as you know, I have gray hair, right? So I've been in this business for about 30 years, and I landed into education by accident because I grew up poor. My parents were Mexican farm workers, and they had very little education in Mexico. And I did not realize until I was a junior in high school how my culture was erased, how my language, a native language speaker, was erased, and how we were taught to be less than. And for example, this is how ignorant we were, and not knowing is that we didn't know. And I grew up in California. I always wondered why we had San Francisco, Sacramento, and the missions. I didn't know until my junior year when I happened to fall upon by recommendation of a teacher to take an advanced history class, and I learned about our culture. And I became very, very angry, and I still have a little bit of that even today on what happened to us. And we are a proud people. We have lots of accomplishments, and that was taken. So my journey has been as follows. I started off changing my degree to education. I taught elementary school, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then I worked my way up in California. And my mission has always been to turn schools around. So I started as a principalship, in my first principalship in San Francisco in, let's see how long, it's about maybe 25 years ago. And ever since then, I've been fighting the fight to provide equal access, opportunity, and success for our kids. And it has not been easy. Sometimes I was alone. Other times I had a good group of support. And I knew that the only way to advance our work was to have what we call the golden ticket, and that's your diploma, right? So I worked my way up to earn a master's degree and a doctorate, and I advanced. I took the journey, and I've held every position possible, including the superintendent. And I now work as a high school principal after leaving education for a little bit, and I'm glad to be back. And I can tell you that all of you who are here, and not just in the panel, but out there, is you are an advocate, and we need you. If not you, who? And you're not alone. And hopefully through our conversations, we can move from a conversation to some tenable, actionable steps, because the time is now, more than ever it's needed. And as we talk today, you're going to hear our stories and some of the things that we have seen. You can make a difference. We can make a difference, and it's time. So glad to be here. Thank you, Mr. Paisong, for inviting me.
Absolutely. And then thank you all. And as I hear your stories, there's so much that resonates with my own story. I know we're all in different places in our educational career, but still, there's so many things that resonate, and some themes that are popping up that I think we'll probably get into deeper with some of these questions that we have lined up for y'all. So we can't really start any conversation without facing the moment that we're in right now. So just how are you holding up? I know we're coming back from coming back into buildings, right? School didn't end. We're coming back into buildings from COVID-19. How has the year started? How has the year started for you? How are your students? How are you? And why don't we start with Liliana?
Well, the year, I think, has been like positive, the fact that we are with our students. Last year felt very different, and obviously it was an unprecedented year, and we have to face many challenges, and we have to support our community a lot. This year feels like very exciting about having our students back. Obviously, with all these protocols that we have to take into account, that we have to continue enforcing, just because we want to have our students safe and healthy. We have our temperature checks. We have to be all the time in communication with the families, being a support for the administrators, the nurse, who is playing a very important role right now in our school. She's checking every day with the homeroom teachers how the students feel, how they are, and we get in touch with the families and we let them know if they need to help us, maybe sometimes picking up their children, checking them with the doctor, checking out if they are fine and if they can continue coming to the school. So those are things that we have to do. But we've been all the time like very in touch with our families, that they feel that we really care about their students and their children. We want them in the school and we want to help them, but we also want to be very careful with all these health protocols. So I feel so far it's been positive. I'm going to talk particularly about the school I work for, and we have had few cases, and that's something really positive. And I think it's been because of the prevention that we've been working on and on that path. I would say that our students feel excited about being back and also having the help they need, because last year we could see, looking back to last year, we could see a lot of struggle. And it's different when they are in person and they have caring teachers that can support them, and also they have their ESL teachers who can support them, who can help them if they don't understand certain things from their academics. But also we have to be aware that our role here is not only like teaching them the academics, but connecting with them. And sometimes just behind a screen, you can still do it because you have the intention to, but being in person makes that connection, that relationship building stronger. And that's what I deeply believe in. And also I know my team in Vance, we advocate for our students and we love to have them close so we can help them more.
Thank you for sharing what your experience has been in. Your experience has been with your students, but I'm not going to let you get away without answering. How are you doing?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Well, I feel much better. I promise. Last year, it was very hard. it was very hard. I mean, as a human being, we always feel the load of working extended hours. And I know I'm talking like on behalf of many teachers that we didn't have a fixed schedule like most of us have right now. So we had to really sacrifice like our family times sometime in order to help. But that was something needed. I mean, you have like to put on people's shoes, and you have to understand that those are things that you do because you care. So last year, obviously, it was a very huge load of work, and also um, sometimes feeling like powerless about how to help more. And comparing to this year, I think this year has been smoother just because we have the presence of our students closer. So it's easier to have conversations with them. It's like being intentional and caring about how they are feeling, their emotions, that they know that we care what's going on with them. Like if they feel they are struggling academically talking, that is not only that we believe in them. So those are things that when you are in front of your students, you can feel and they can feel it too, and you can connect and you can start working from there. So if you ask me how I feel right now, I feel much better. I feel happy to have my students closer, and hopefully we can continue having them closer and in presence longer.
Thank you, Liliana. Carlos, how are you doing? How are you students? How are your students? How are you holding up?
Well, thank you for asking. When you prepped us with that, I had to really think, because as Liliana said, we've been involved in the work, and that means every day to a certain extent, depending on the situation. So those educators that are out there, thank you so much for all that you do for our communities. It matters. So I'm doing well, but it takes balance, right? It's finding that work-life balance. So it works on most days, but initially it was difficult, stressed out, and we all have our signs, and we know when we're stressed out. Usually our body talks to us, right? Or someone says, "You look stressed out." So just finding that balance, and it's working so far. I wanted to answer the next part, though, y'all. If we could look at what we're going through as a system, an educational change and reform, really forced reform. 1.0, I like to look at it in versions. 1.0 was pre-pandemic, 2.0 was hybrid, and now 3.0 is teaching and learning during a pandemic. So right now, 3.0, that's where we are. We are dealing with kids that, when you think about it in high school, the last time they were in school was seventh grade spring. Those of you who are middle school people, remember that seventh grade springtime? And now all of a sudden they show up as sophomores at the high school, and they had to learn how to become students again. All students really, but the maturity, we saw arrested development. The other piece is the academic, right? Our teachers only had, at least in Orange County here, the way we structured the day, probably y'all too, you had 50% of the time to teach 100% of the curriculum. And you're still held accountable for results, which, by the way, they're a joke. Don't even look at it. Teachers, if you're out there, ignore the results. It's just not good data. And in addition to that, we all feel we have this fear of getting sick or being around people that we might get sick if we're carriers. And as at the high school, and those of you who are working with kids too, is keeping everyone motivated and focused to learn. And that has been the stretch when we ourselves are tired and covering for duties and wondering when the bus is going to show up, because the buses are never on time now, these days. There's a labor shortage. There's getting toilet paper sometimes could be an issue at some places because of the supply chain. So all these things put together has made our year in 3.0 not fun. But when we get up every day and go to work, we know who we are serving, and that is our community and our kids. If it's not us, then who? So Um, if we need to cry, the door is closed. If I need to unplug, I go fishing. So that's how we create this balance, right? And I'm excited though. With things kids are learning, they're in. We're seeing progress. Kids are excited. So are teachers, but we're tired. We're just tired. Thank you for asking that question.
Absolutely. Um, Celeste, I'm interested in hearing your perspective as well, having to balance the role of both student and teacher. Just wondering, the same. How are you doing? How has this year been for you?
So same as Liliana, like this semester, like starting this school year feels a lot better. Again, being able to see kids' faces, being able to, pull them out for that small group time, get to know them one-on-one outside of academic time, has been really refreshing. But since the start of this of 2021, I'm actually like a super senior. I was supposed to graduate a lot earlier than I am going to now. But one of the things that held me back last semester was that I actually ended up getting the virus in February. And it was 2 weeks before I was supposed to start my TPA, which for any of you who aren't familiar with it, first of all, good for you. But second, it's very similar to national boards from what I've heard. We plan a lesson, we record it, reflect on it, assess student learning. But I was in quarantine the time when I was supposed to be transitioning into picking up my role in the classroom to start teaching those lessons. And so once I came out of quarantine, I was exhausted because I had been sick this whole time, and it was difficult for me to even stand up in front of the classroom for long periods of time and talking, because we had all our core blocks back to back. And so talking for even if it was just maybe 4 hours straight was really exhausting for me. And then coming right out of that, having to teach my TPA, and I was able to teach one lesson in person and then the rest suddenly go virtual, and I had never had any experience with that before. It was a big struggle. It was very stressful. And ultimately I wasn't able to keep that balance. Carlos says, the balance is important. And for me, I was still learning that. And so some things got put on the back burner, and I had to prioritize my physical and mental health. But this semester I feel a lot better about being in person, and the team that I'm with, the team leader I have, and the students I'm working with, and my on-site teacher educator is phenomenal. And I'm just really looking forward to this year, but definitely the beginning of the year was a struggle. But I'm really trying to look at, going forward optimistically. And I think that was on our side, as students trying to become teachers, what affected us the most was that ed TPA piece, because there was a lot of questions. Are they still gonna, assess it the same? Are they gonna they didn't really have a virtual option before, and it was in the middle of last semester that they came out with a virtual handbook, and now it's an option that we hopefully won't have to resort to. But that's the biggest thing. And now a lot of things have changed in terms of what we need to graduate versus what we need to get our license. So a lot of right now is to graduate, you just need to submit your TPA, take all the tests that we need to, but then of course to get licensure is when you would have to pass. But as many of us know, there's a little bit more time after graduation to do that. But it was really concerning for a lot of us to have worked for something so hard, and then right at the end have something that just, I don't know, it makes you feel so hopeless. But I feel a lot better about this year, and I think students are definitely going to be benefiting, like Liliana said, from that in-person instruction, and I hope it stays that way. And I think it happened 2 weeks ago, where it was the first time in about a month or so that we had all our students in one classroom. and we had like gained 2 more, and it was like my OSTE like last one was trying to figure out where to sit everyone because not everyone had been there like in this whole time. Like we'd always had someone missing, like someone could take someone else's seat, and thankfully I've been able to kind of pick up and like do some of that reteaching and review and individualized instruction as a student intern that my OSTE might not have as much time for otherwise. But it is really difficult having kids have to go out and be quarantined because of their family. They themselves may not have COVID, but they have to quarantine with their families, and so they're out, and maybe they can figure out how to get on Canvas or whatever digital platform they're using, or maybe they can't, and now they're stuck with all this like weeks worth of work when they come back, and that's been really difficult. But like I said, like this is 3.0, and hopefully 4.0 or wherever comes next is a lot better. And I just think it's helped me gain those teacher skills of having to learn quickly on your feet and be adaptable, or like my old team leader would say, thoughtfully adaptive. Yeah, so right now I'm good.
Well, Celeste, we are thankful that you were able to recover and are feeling better, and are having a better semester. I've been a super senior for a couple. I was a super senior for a couple years, so I feel you on that as well. So keeping the impact of COVID-19 in mind, the continued racial reckoning that we see in our nation, and as we saw in the previous session, a growing Latinx student population overall. What have you seen as your impact being in the classroom or in your school at the moment? In short, do you think it matters for your students to see Latinx educators in your schools? And Carlos, I'd love to start with you for this question.
Thank you. I can't tell you how important it is to have a role model, and having an opportunity to build relationships with our families. It's amazing how even now I have kids walk up to me and ask me, "Are you Mexican or are you white?" And then I'm a Chicano, so I start talking Chicano to them, and I'm like, "What? This isn't making sense because you look at you, look how you look and how you do that. It creates a discrepant event for them." And then we start talking about what they're interested in and how they can help. So it's so cool to see when students can make that connection, and then they have this belief that if you could do it, then I could do it, right? And right now, when I look across this state and the amount of Latino administrators, it's just sad. The number that we have is just sad, and the number of teachers that are coming through the pipeline needs to improve. And that's why I'm hoping those of you in the audience who are considering becoming teachers, do it. The impact that you'll make is just beyond measure. For those of us who have grown up not seeing Latino administrators or Latinos in education, I didn't see mine until high school, and I didn't see a principal until I became one. Really, it's so needed, and you all know you probably have been through that experience, and then the mentoring piece is important. How can we mentor up and coming teachers or leaders or kids? And that's why I'm super excited about this organization and the potential it has to transform communities and lives. So did I answer your question, Dyson?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, and I think it'd be interesting for all of us to share when you're answering, like, when was the first time you had a Latinx educator? For me, it was high school. It was a Spanish teacher in high school. But Celeste, how about you? What's been the impact of being in the classroom at this moment, and does it matter for students to see a Latinx educator, a Latina in our school?
I think starting off with like doesn't matter, most definitely. So this was before COVID, but I think back to a time when I was an intern in a second grade classroom, and there was a little boy named Gerardo, and he was he been tested as ESL or English language learner, and he also had an IEP. And I noticed him speaking out in Spanish, and his teacher had told me how he does tend to speak more Spanish, but she knows a little bit, and she tries to talk to him in Spanish so that he'll be more engaged. And so I went up to him, and I was like, ¿Te llamas Gerardo? And he was like, Gerardo? No, yo soy Gerardito. Gerardo es mi papá. You know, like I did, and you know, I was able to make that connection with him. And afterwards, like I would, you know, if he like maybe wasn't engaged, I would, if my teacher was asking him something, I would ask him in Spanish, like, you know, like just like repeating the question, and he might answer me, and I'd be like, okay, let's try and use our English words, or I would help him communicate with the rest of the class. And I think that was really helpful for him. And then there was a pair of a brother and a sister, and the brother knew more English than the sister. They had put her in the same grade as him so that he could support her, even though I believe she should have been in a grade lower. And at one point, I remember just being near the table, and she was like, "You speak Spanish?" And I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "Really?" She was like, and she was like, and then suddenly, like this quiet girl just went rambling off about how she had some cousins back home, and she had a dog, and toys that she had at home, and what she did after school. And so I think that matters, that connection with someone who you know will understand you and who can relate to you. As far as during COVID, throughout the time that I've been in internships in COVID, I've mainly been in predominantly white schools in rural Randolph County. And I think there it's been more of providing a different perspective and exposing students to a culture or you know, life circumstances that they may not have thought of before. Like I remember more last semester, we were talking about services provided by the government, and we were talking about public education. And I told them the story of my parents who only went up to about 8th grade, and how they were lucky enough to finish up until 8th grade, but other students may have been pulled out earlier to, you know, work on the farm, or students couldn't continue going to high school because they couldn't afford it, or to go to the big city, or how they had to walk to school. And they were like, wait, that really happens? Like, there's really people who can't go to school? And I was like, yes. Like for me, I'm just like, you know, like I just know, okay, like mi gente, you know, there's people who might not be literate, or you know, my grandpa is one example, who he can't read or write, and I mean, he personally doesn't care to. But that's, for me, that's just a fact of life, and I didn't realize until that moment that other people don't have that just knowing of people missing out on certain things, and they didn't recognize the privilege they had to be in a free public education system. And I told them, like, you know, think about how lucky you are, and to have such wonderful teachers and such a nice, clean school, and materials for every single one of you, because they're one-to-one Chromebooks at that school. And yeah, I think that's mainly my impact during COVID has been that, just like shedding light, sharing about it, as many different cultures as I can, in as many different contents and disciplines as I can. But I think it depends on the school I'm at, definitely.
Thank you, Celeste. And Liliana, how about you? What do you think has been your impact as a Latina for your students and in the classroom?
I think, well, I feel a lot like Celeste. My case is a little bit different. I didn't grow up in the United States. I came here with a cultural exchange program. And it was the first time I came, it was in the 2009. And I'm going to tell you 2010, sorry. And it was the first time I worked as a Spanish and ESL teacher for a middle school. and it was in a different county. Um, that was the first time I could experience the way my students feel that identity of, connecting with someone who is like them. And I've always told them my story, because I think sharing our stories is important. That creates identity, and also it's important for them to have a role model. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm saying, like, I've been someone who had a dream once when I was a little girl, and pursuing that dream, I came to this country and I started teaching. So the power of education is important. And I try to tell them all the time that if they have a dream, they can pursue that dream, and they can become whatever they want them. Um, it's very important to have conversations, like, for example, we have now the Hispanic Heritage Month, and celebrating our identity, talking about those role models and people like us who one day were kids and their families were immigrants, and they came and they didn't know English first, they knew Spanish, or if they were born here but in their families, the first language obviously at home was Spanish. Like, talking about how important is the fact that they are having other opportunities, that they can help their families, that they can have um, a better life, and they can also open up some more opportunities for their siblings, the little siblings. It's a responsibility. So having this talk is important. I really like to share. For example, if I travel, if I have something fun that I did, I tell them that they can also do it. And then I just try to have the conversation with them. Hey, have you ever had a dream about going somewhere? What is a place that you would like to visit? Why? Now, with the Hispanic Heritage Month, like, having the conversation of having role models, like, they could achieve this. Look at how huge steps they had to overcome, and they had to go in order to pursue their dreams. And we talk about, we just like stop for a moment, and I think planting that seed of thinking, what is a dream for you, what is something you would like to do. Especially, I have this anecdote that happened, like, I think it was 2 days ago, and we were talking about, okay, what is something you would like to become when you grow up. And we were studying the biography of Sonia Sotomayor. So they were so inspired, and they were telling me, I want to become a nurse, I want to enroll in the army, or they were telling me different things. And I was like looking at their face, and it was really what made my day, because I was telling them, imagine one day if I go to the hospital and I find you, Irene, in that hospital, and you're going to take care of me. I'll be so happy, because I know you'll be a very good nurse. And they were like, really? And I was having this conversation with them about it. And I feel it was very engaging, but I was telling them, we have dreams. And if they could achieve their dreams, guys, you can also do it. I'm here because one day when I was little, I had a dream of learning a different language, even though I wasn't raised here, as I said, learning a different language, coming here. And when I was at this point of getting part of my dream came true, I found out that I could do a lot for my community. Now my son, it's also part of our community, and he's also looking at important people who have contributed with education, and telling them that the opportunities he's having now with the education he's having here, learning English at a short age. I mean, it's amazing. And we can compare, we can tell them what is the reality in our countries, how fortunate and lucky they are, because they are having this opportunity of having this education here, what they are going to do. So don't let anything stop you. You are now a person who can help your family, how you would like to help your family. And it's important to plant those seeds, because that can also help, like try to engage. I would really like to see more in the schools, the service projects, because I think that would really help students, make them feel like, I know I can help. I can help my community. I can help them interpreting. I can help them um, filling out papers, documents that they have. So things like that, like they really have like the certainty that what they are learning is helpful for society and is helpful for their community. So I think it would be something nice to have more service projects. And the fact that they have Hispanic teachers or Latinx teachers in the schools, I think it helps, because it gives them role models to follow, and they can really like shape an idea of what they could be one day. So the invitation is open for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. I think it's clear, right, that we know that representation matters. And with that being said, and I'm going to combine sort of the next two questions together, because we're coming up on time. And if you haven't dropped a question in the chat yet for the Q&A portion, please feel free to do so. But from your experience, how do we recruit more Latinx educators? And then once they're in the classrooms and in our schools, how do we retain them? Okay. And Liliana, let's just go back to you.
Well, it's a hard question. I would really like to have the answer for that question. I think insisting in that we believe in them, that they can also help other children if they become teachers, telling them that this is a great opportunity to help the community, and reminding them that they could be good helpers for the community if they decide to once become a teacher. So I believe it's just reminding them that this is a possibility. If I have it, you also have it. So it's up to you. And I think something that I'm very proud in Vance County, the ESL team, I have to say, is that as a team, we've been doing a lot of connection with our community through Zoom meetings that we have monthly. So also talking, to parents, giving the information about education, what are the possibilities that they can have, if they know that there are possibilities for them, if they know that they can have some kind of excuse me, if they know that they can have some kind of aid or economical aid. So basically, like giving that information. And in our team, we have other people who advocate and also help them, given the information about having extended education on how to finish their high schools, or how to continue their education in college. What are some helps they can get? So basically, I think it's something good is just trying to give more information about the way you can do it. Because sometimes they might think that I don't have the money to do it. How can we do it? But we need to share the information. This is possible. There are certain institutions that can let you do it. There are grants. How can you apply to a grant? Do you need some help? So I think when you have a team, and it's connected like elementary teachers, middle school teachers, and high school teachers, and we all work together, that's something that it's getting the families. So we see more involvement, and we see that more and more we gain more parents joining our meetings. And part of the agenda, it's giving information about superior education. So I think it's something that can be replicated, and it will help a lot.
Thank you, Liliana. Celeste, how do we recruit more Latinx educators?
I think kind of like Liana said, it's I think every teacher has a story of a teacher that made a difference in their lives that made them want to teach. It's not something you do for the money or the prestige. Although my family actually does have some teachers like in our family back home, and it's like, oh, el profe, and they're just, you know, they're the most educated in the town usually. But here in the United States, I feel like teachers don't get that recognition for the important foundation they're laying for the entire nation. But I think that starts with connecting with our, you know, if we want more Latinx teachers, we need to uplift our Latinx students, like Liliana said, and make them want to pursue education, make them want to serve and educate others, because it is something that comes from the heart, and it's something that like I feel called to do. Because I mean, my mom would love for me to be doing some 6-figure job, you know, get her like her casita, you know, help her pay off some loans. And she's like, but you had to be a teacher. And I think it's, again, like Liliana said, it's that financial aspect, and a lot of, you know, Latinos who might be pursuing education don't know what help there is out there, or maybe there isn't enough, and they might not be able to. And you know, if you see like, how much am I paying for this degree, and then what is this degree going to pay me afterwards to help me pay off that degree? And sometimes teaching doesn't make sense for some students, and you know, it's unfortunate. But you know, if you know things like the Teach Grant, or the fact that there is like financial aid at all. I know I had primas that were scared to fill in their FAFSA because you know, you have to put in social security numbers, and that can be scary for some parents and families. So I think a lot of it comes with education about what help there is if you do want to become a teacher. But I think it really starts with, you know, fostering that love of learning in students at those beginning levels.
Thank you so much. And Carlos, once we recruit them, how do we keep them? How do we retain our Latinx educators?
That is such an important question, and we are actually writing a school improvement plan to do that. Our district is. So the teachers, regardless of where they end up, stay for 3 reasons. The first one, believe it or not, is whether or not they have a friend. The second is if they have a supportive administration, principal, or someone who can support them. And then the third thing is money, if it's reasonable pay. So those are 3 reasons why teachers stay. Now, for our Latino teachers, or Latinx teachers, it's important that they make that leadership makes an important connection, and consider them as familia. So I can share a story that I was a teacher, an elementary school teacher, and if it wasn't for Dr. Carlota Del Portillo, who mentored me, she actually found me. And through a meeting, she says, "You know what? Tell me about yourself." She says, "You know, I'm going to help you. Here's my number." And I don't know who this lady was, right? And I relied on her mentorship over the years. And if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have stayed in education. I probably would have done something else. So teaching is hard, y'all. It is hard, and it's important that we support all teachers, and sometimes it's just being there. So to keep them, we got to recruit them, we got to mentor them, and we have to support and this is something that's super important. Value their dreams and their futures and what they would like to do to make a difference. So if you're in this call, I encourage you to become a school administrator or a teacher to impact the lives, because your work can matter. So
Absolutely. And thank you. And thank you all for your insightful answers. That's it for our questions. And I know we want to leave a little bit of time for a Q&A from the audience members if they have any questions. But just hearing your stories and thinking about sort of what this means in this moment for this first Latinx Education Summit. I hear stories of resilience, right? Of overcoming, whether it's isolation or assimilation or even just what everyone's had to face, right, in the moment over these past almost 20 months. And just thinking about how we can take this moment and grow into a network, right? So we can still be resilient people, but then know that I can go to Carlos if I have a question, or Liliana, like that we're connected, right? And now we have each other, like Celeste, like we can hang out and talk about like how we're going to transform education, right? And how we can change what this means, not just for us as educators and as leaders, but also for the students who come up after us. Looks like we do have a question. ¿Qué están haciendo en las escuelas para que más estudiantes latinos se... Oh, my glasses. Más en forma de... How do we get our students to be our teachers? Or sorry, our leaders? How do we grow students to be leaders?
I believe, maybe having in elementary schools, maybe having the Spanish clubs, like give them a certain sense of pride and get to know more about the culture. But also, I think it's important to also start like in upper grade levels, in elementary, middle, and high, service projects. That would be also a good way to make our students be more involved and they feel that they can be proactive helping the community. But we need to find out what kind of projects will be the best projects for our students so they get more involved.
Thank you, Liliana.
I know the question answers que tengan más clubes biculturales, those like extracurricular forms to express their culture, like Liliana said, to show pride in their background. I remember very clearly one day in like 3rd grade, and I was in the Hispanic League of Winston-Salem's Baile Folklorico group, and somehow my teacher found out about it, and somehow she got me to make a little slideshow with my dad of pictures of me and mis falditas, like at all the dances, and I wore like mi falda folklorica, and I just remember feeling such pride because I was one of very few Latinas in my school at that time, and everyone was like, "Oh, like that's so cool that you know that." And I think that comes down to like in the classroom, we as teachers can provide those spaces for our students to gain ownership of their identity and see that it's valued, and then we can show them that it's an asset, that they have something to give to the world because of how they grew up and how they were raised and the languages they speak and the interests they have. And then, but as far as like outside of the class, at least for me as a college student, there's a lot of cultural groups, and that's where I found my place and my belonging, and where I started developing myself as a leader. So for me as a college student, like being a sister of Latina Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated, which is the first and largest Latina sorority, and that helped me, find other Latina women, other Latina educators actually, and made me be proud and develop professionally. And so if I realize the importance of that, then how impactful can it be to have that opportunity, like Juliana said, in elementary school, in middle school, in high school? How solid will our leaders be if we provide those opportunities for them the whole time?
Thank you, Celeste. And thank you all so much for attending this critical conversation this afternoon. I encourage you to continue following at Latinx Education to learn how you can support their work and Latinx educators across North Carolina. I'm going to toss it back over to Ricky and Elaine as we wrap up day one and provide a sneak peek as to what to expect for day two for Latinx Education Summit. But I hope y'all there in the virtual world can give our panelists some love for all the insight and knowledge that they just dropped on us this afternoon. Thank you all.